What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Smoking Tire Podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Valvoline, the original motor oil. That's right. Valvoline is America's very first motor oil brand. For 150 years, they've been innovating, creating, and reinventing motor oil. From the very first high mileage oil to the first synthetic blend to the first racing oil, they've never stopped pursuing innovation to maximize engine life. And Valvoline's latest innovation, Extended Protection Full Synthetic Motor Oil, provides 50% better wear protection than industry standards and is 10 times stronger against oil breakdown. Valvoline Extended Protection is specifically formulated with dual defense additive technology, combining an innovative additive boosted with a fortified detergent system. And why do you need it? Because I bet you're a severe driver. You might not think you're a severe driver, but short trips, towing, extreme temperatures, turbocharged engines, and heavy loads like a fully loaded van or SUV, and especially spirited drives, put extra pressure on your engine. Just ask people like Chris Forsberg, Rob Dahm, Freddie Tavares, Hernandez, Speed Academy, Gears and Gasoline, Dustin Williams, and TJ Hunt, all of whom trust Valvoline in their cars. I love the history behind Valvoline, as well as everything they've accomplished in motorsport. It gives me confidence that I'm putting a high-quality motor oil in my car. They're the only brand with a dedicated engine lab where they can run specialized and standardized engine tests right in their own facility. They're the world's #1 supplier of EV battery fluids, offering tailored products to help extend vehicle range and efficiency. And Valvoline is proud to be the official motor oil of Hendrick Motorsports. Valvoline driver Kyle Larson was just crowned the 2021 NASCAR Cup Series regular season champion with 9 wins and 2,000 laps led. So head down to your local auto parts store and ask for Valvoline by name. We're also brought to you today by Noom. You never heard of Noom? Noom is good. Here's what Noom is. Noom is an app that'll help you manage daily stress and anxious thoughts. Something we all want, but a lot of us don't know where to even begin. If you've listened to this show for any period of time, you know that I work every single day to manage stress, anxiety, and I've tried a bunch of different things. I go see a therapist, an in-person therapist. I've tried chemical solutions. I've read books, tried meditative strategies, and now I am in to Noom Mood. It's here to guide you to mental wellness and give you the tools you need to tackle stress so you'll feel empowered to take on whatever life throws at you. So it's one step at a time, right? So you start by going to Noom.com/tire. And there you do a very quick, straightforward questionnaire about what gives you stress. What makes you stress in your life? Is it work? Is it family? Is it your eating? Is it your sleeping? And you go through, and it takes, 5 minutes to get to the end of the questionnaire. And at the end of which, Noom provides you with a personalized anxiety and stress reduction plan, right? It's just your plan, and it asks of you is one step at a time, a couple of minutes a day. There's a team of dedicated coaches, so you'll have a support system helping you along the way. It's backed by science. The lessons are based on psychological principles that teach you about your relationship with stress and anxiety. It provides you with a variety of tools and techniques to try out and discover. There's a new daily curriculum coupled with a one-on-one coach guiding and encouraging you on your journey. It's accessible and convenient, and with only 10 minutes a day, you can do it whenever or wherever, as long as you've got your phone with you, right? Letting your stress control you, letting your anxiety control you is a losing strategy, unfortunately. I have dealt with this for many, many years, and you have to do a little bit of work and gain a little bit of knowledge and skills to steer yourself out of that hole. Now, because one size doesn't fit all, the personalized program helps, and you can navigate the program at your own pace with the support of a coach along the way. Right? You could help lose weight. You could help sleep better. You could help be happier. You could be a better husband, wife, child, parent. And taking care of your mental wellness is totally empowering. So by understanding your personal relationship with stress and anxious thoughts, you can take control, build resilience, and develop coping mechanisms that actually work. All you need is 10 minutes a day, and it's an app, so it's there for you anytime, anywhere. So worry less, feel happier. Sign up for your trial at Noom.com/tire. Noom.com/tire. That's NOOM.com/tire. All right? Trust me, this is good stuff. Being happier, being less stressed is extremely, extremely clutch. Noom, NOOM.com/tire. And it's Policy Genius. They're back. Thanksgiving is coming, folks. November's here. I'm ready for turkey. I'm ready for taters. There's a lot to be thankful for. My family, my brother's doing better, and I'm thankful for the fact that Policy Genius can check if I'm paying too much for home and auto insurance. While your holiday calendar starts filling up, let those folks at Policy Genius get your home and auto insurance shopping done faster than you can still say daylight savings time. They make it easy to compare home and auto insurance in one place, helping you find home and auto coverage similar to what you have now, but at a lower price. They've saved customers an average of $1,250 per year over what they were paying for home and auto before. Think of the party you could have for Thanksgiving with $1,250 a year. They've saved new customers an average of $435 a year on auto. They've saved new customers an average of $350 a year on home. And their team at Policy Genius will handle the paperwork to set up your new policy or switch over your current one. So getting started is really easy. Just go to policygenius.com/smokingtire, answer a few quick questions about yourself and your property, and then Policy Genius takes it from there. They'll compare rates from America's top insurers, from Progressive to Allstate, to find you the lowest quotes available. They can look for ways to save you more, including bundling your home and auto policies. If Policy Genius finds a better rate than what you're paying now, they'll switch you over for free. Their top-notch service has earned Policy Genius thousands of 5-star reviews across Trustpilot and Google. So head over to policygenius.com/smokingtire to get started right now. Policy Genius, when it comes to insurance, it is nice to get it right. How about CrowdHealth, folks? More than half of Americans are on a high-deductible health insurance plan, on the hook for thousands of dollars in deductibles, copays, and sky-high premiums. I know this because I was once on one of those plans. There was sort of the, I can't really afford good insurance, but I need to have some kind of insurance for if I get into a massive car accident, right? It's like the super emergency insurance plan. Those plans aren't great. And unfortunately, the only way I was able to get off that plan was to marry somebody. Our system in this country stinks. Many people are concerned about the cost of health insurance, and there really aren't any good options other than marrying someone who works at a quality corporation with great coverage. You've got to either go insured, pay through the nose for a high deductible plan with questionable coverage, all because our broken health insurance system stinks. It's like being stuck with an old cable TV plan and not knowing that Netflix was a thing. So CrowdHealth is here. It isn't health insurance, but it's a better way to pay medical expenses. CrowdHealth is a community of people who are tired of paying into a broken system. It's a place where you can get a simple, flexible, and affordable way to pay for your health care. Being in the CrowdHealth community can save hundreds of dollars monthly and put thousands of dollars back into your pocket. It's flexible. It's a monthly subscription, so you can start or stop when it's convenient for you. It's simple. They have an app, and by using it, you can find nearly any doctor in the country ranked from 1-star to 5-star. And it's a community of health-conscious members who want to get healthy and stay healthy in return for lower prices. 100% of your monthly membership pays for actual healthcare costs, helping the whole CrowdHealth community stay healthy while keeping more money in your pocket. So CrowdHealth is able to offer these amazing prices because of its community of health-conscious members. But for a limited time, our listeners are getting their first month for free. And once you've been a member, CrowdHealth will include a fitness wearable. That's 30 days to try risk-free, plus the fitness wearable. So go to So go to joincrowdhealth.com/fit. That's joincrowdhealth.com/fit and enter code TIRE at sign-up. Joincrowdhealth.com/fit. Enter code TIRE at sign-up to get your first 30 days to try risk-free plus the fitness wearable. CrowdHealth is not health insurance. It's a community-powered alternative. Terms and conditions may apply. All right, folks, on this episode of the podcast, my old friend Kyle Tucker, founder and CEO of Detroit Speed and Engineering out of Mooresville, North Carolina. I love Detroit Speed. I think that these guys build some of the highest quality builds in the American car genre. Their parts are second to none. Their engineering is incredible. They win races. They win autocrosses. They build true drivers' cars, making these old school classics really go stop and turn better than anyone else I've ever seen. I went to North Carolina like 4 or 5 years ago to drive a bunch of their cars, and I came away so impressed. Today we're at the SEMA show in Las Vegas, brought to you by Valvoline, who has paid us to broadcast from their booth. Very kind of them. And we've got Kyle Tucker joining us at the Valvoline booth from the floor of the SEMA show, talking about the history and science of Detroit Speed and Engineering on the Smoking Tire Podcast. Welcome back to SEMA, folks. This is, it's an interesting year here at the convention center. It's a little less hectic, I think, than it's been. Easier to pee, easier to get a terrible hot dog, and hanging out with Kyle Tucker. What's happening, brother? Nice to see you.
Nice to see you. Thanks for the invite, and it's different this year.
Yeah, which I don't know. I don't miss the old way. I think this is good. It's nice. I mean, a little space to breathe, and I got to admit, it's a lot easier to get around wearing a mask.
No,
you're not being stopped by people.
It is, and your key point on going to the bathroom, you can get in and out pretty quick.
It's
There's not
nice.
A big line, shoulder to shoulder in the aisle.
Very nice.
It is nice.
Yeah.
And no one can tell if you're smiling really widely in the bathroom.
I know.
It's good.
Hey, man, what are you looking at? Oh, you got your mask on.
Dude, I'm pro. And, as far as the old school American cars, your company, Detroit Speed, built some of the best stuff I've ever driven. Some of the tightest,
Thank you.
Best handling. What a lot of people, I think, wish they had with their builds or think they have with their builds, but they don't quite seem to get all the way there. But at the Detroit Speed stuff, it's certainly your in-house projects, your car, your wife Stacy's car, your shop vehicles are pretty over the top, but not just because it's 1,000 horsepower or whatever, just in terms of that tightness that you don't really get with the older stuff ever. Why is that?
Well, one, we've got a pretty open canvas to work with on the older cars, right, compared to today.
Yeah.
But I appreciate the words, and we've worked hard at it. When I worked at GM, I was in development at the proving ground, so you learn what somebody like GM does to make a car right.
Right.
To ride right, stop right, do all the things right. And we've tried to apply all of that at Detroit Speed to these older muscle cars. And you can, tires today. Tires are the biggest advantage. So from a suspension standpoint, we've got a lot of room to catch up to the tire and much improved overall from what 60s, 70s cars had. So
but
it's a big step.
there's so much more to it than just like assembling the correct parts. It seems like there's a fine-tuning aspect of it that either is overlooked by a lot of people, or there's just it feels like there's always a lot left on the table.
I think it's really in the development of the products. We spend a lot of time, testing the products. Every product line we've ever come out with, we've had a test car, and that test car gets put through hell. To just sort it out, to break it, or just sort out the ride. Stop, steer, everything about the car. And I think that's where a lot of companies in the aftermarket, there's a lot of good companies, but where a lot of companies just, they don't have the bandwidth to do that too.
So you worked at GM. Is that where your career in cars started, or what was before GM?
Yeah, so engineering school before GM.
Uh-huh.
I was a college co-op, lucky enough to get into a program there, and went into the GM Proving Grounds. That's where I worked at for college co-op career and full-time
Doing what
career.
Kind of stuff?
Ride and handling. So,
okay. Well, that certainly explains a lot.
Suspension development, test data.
Did you get to do that for sports cars, or did you have to do it for Luminas?
You never believe me, but I was a kid coming in from engineering school, and the C5 was a pre-prototype at that phase. So I'm dating myself right there. But they needed someone that had no ties and could move where the weather was good and take a car with you. So we had 6 pre-prototype C5 Corvettes, and I had one as a new engineer to go test chassis and suspension loads.
Wow, how camoed was it?
Very camoed. It was extra body panels on top of body panels and lots of matte black at the time wrap. Wraps aren't what they are today, so it was like I put it on, but they were camoed the best they could, but we broke a lot of stuff.
How excited were you as a recent college grad? Like, here's the new sports car. It's going to be the next Corvette.
Yeah, it wasn't like here's the Lumina or the Beretta or
go test this door handle.
The Cavalier or whatever. It was actually to dive right into the sports car program.
It was big. I was a kid that grew up racing and loved cars. My dad had hot rods, so to me, I still have goosebumps thinking about it. I mean, it was just a great opportunity, right place at the right time. And as a gearhead, you go into the proving ground, they hand you a pre-prototype C5 Corvette. This is the test schedule. This is what we need done and when. And here's your roads. Here's the hoist. Here's all the tools and equipment you need, and go after it.
Did you have competitive product to drive as well?
Yes.
What was the competitive product that you were driving for the C5 Corvette? Because I owned a C5 Corvette for 18 years. I had a 1998, and I sold it in 2016. So I had a lot of seat time.
Yeah.
So what was the competitive product?
It was a wide range, but a great question. It went from the Viper to Acura NSX to, of course, the Mustangs, anything in the middle. But,
nothing Italian? Nothing German?
Not that I got in. They may have given that to the higher pay grade guys.
I think they could have. I think they had an opportunity there that might have been missed. But I feel you.
Chief engineer was Dave Hill at the time. And he was a right-on guy. He came from Cadillac, so he had like the Cadillac side to him. So it ride meant a lot to him.
Mm-hmm.
But as you know, owning a C5 and driving it had a lot of handling capacity.
Yeah.
As well as
you could get a C5 today.
Yes.
And you put it on the right tires and a couple basic bolt-on upgrades, and you could be one of the fastest guys at any given track day.
Yeah, the Z06, he put tires, brakes, and new seats in it, right?
Yeah, seats for sure.
Hooked up.
Yeah. When you're doing that kind of development, and the car, I remember reading about it because I was, I bought my car when I was 18, so I remember reading about it in the magazines before then, and there was the speculation of, are we going to finally get away from the leaf spring, the transverse leaf spring? So you were working on that pre-pro car. Did you ever propose, or what was the discussion like at that time about maybe going to a coilover or a leaf spring or whatever? Was it talked about, or was it, nope, it's a leaf spring and it's staying that way?
Yeah, I don't remember it talked about a whole lot because there was such a new architecture of the car coming from the C4 to C5. They had a lot of moving parts, a lot of new parts, and I don't remember coilovers or anything like that coming up to replace the leaf springs.
I remember it afterwards, once the car came out, there was, quotes from whoever in the reviews saying, well, the coilovers didn't match the durability cycle. They had it was a 200,000 mile durability cycle or something.
Crazy what they put
and
through.
They couldn't find a coilover that would last as long.
Right. And there's probably some truth to that. I mean, it's basically an exposed monoball bearing on most coilovers, and that would not survive the GM Proving Ground durability tests.
I learned a lot from guys like, Al Oppenheiser and the GM Performance guys. When the C7 ZR1, when I went on the launch for that in 2019, and it had the performance data recorder and the built-in camera.
Right.
And it was like 720p.
Yeah.
And I was like, what the fuck, guys? My iPhone is, is 2.7K or whatever. And they go, yeah, but your iPhone camera won't survive 10 years in the sun, and our camera will.
Yeah.
And I learned a lot about durability cycles and what they expected and why, in some cases that hardware seemed to be, quote, behind the times.
It would blow your mind to know the kind of tests that GM and probably most of the bigger OE companies in the U.S., what testing they do and what freak accidents have probably occurred through the years and they test for.
Yeah. Doesn't that, I mean, when you move from that type of factory testing to the aftermarket, you must approach your product from the beginning with a completely different mindset.
It was, and I think that was what helped us a lot. Definitely the engineering and the finite element analysis, as much as you can afford in an aftermarket company to throw at it. I knew what the big guys did.
Yeah.
But as much as we could capital spend and do that, we did. But we spent most of the time after design work, all those hours in development, because you could get a car, I could go to the track, and we could just pound it.
Well, it's interesting, here we are at SEMA, where, we're at aftermarket land, right? And you see all kinds of parts, expensive parts, cheap parts, everything in between. And from a personal experience, I had built this Mustang, right, a Fox body, and it was really cool. It looked great, and independent rear suspension. It was, a whole deal. But it would never really run right, and so I took it to this guy who's like the last guy in LA who could dyno test a Fox body. He had like a PC from 1993, you know what I mean, with one of them ribbon connectors. Like, it was ridiculous. And he opened my hood and he went, "Oh, I see your problem." And I had all these brand name aftermarket parts, from the distributor to the coil to the da and the da. And he goes, "What we're gonna do is we're gonna rip all this shit out, and we're just going to get stuff from other Fords. Just Fords with this engine that made more power. We're going to mix. Okay, you need the throttle body from the Cobra. You need the distributor from the Explorer. You need the da-da-da." And all of a sudden, it ran perfect.
It's crazy,
and he's
isn't
like, these other companies, even though you've seen them in jegs your whole life, they're not doing the testing, the quality control that you can get from your basic ass Ford part.
Right.
You know,
there's a lot said for that. I mean, they have teams of engineers and people to be able to work on this most minute part, to perfect it. Yeah.
So when I visited you guys in North Carolina, I think it was 2016 or 17. It was probably 5 years ago. I drove a bunch of stuff. It was great. You guys can go back and dig up those videos. They were fun. It was a good time, and I really enjoyed meeting your people, and I really enjoyed learning about what it was that you guys did, and at that time, the cars were obviously heavily chassis focused, and I drove an autocross Corvette and your car, which was a real true pro touring, well-rounded car, as well as Stacy's car, and but it was all kind of LS based, Tremec gearboxes. But it's been 5 years. So what is the industry standard now for a $500,000 pro touring build? What are we doing that's new?
Yeah, it's more demanding and more of the OE still trickling down into the aftermarket. I mean, what a controller, any engine controller can do now in the aftermarket is crazy compared to what it used to be able to do 5 or 6 years ago. So, electric steering,
electric
electronic
power
diffs.
Steering.
I mean, sequential transmissions, all those things are on the table now for builds, and it just gets analog brakes. We use a lot of analog brakes. So the systems in the cars just get to be more and more sophisticated every year.
I mean, the most advanced car that you had at the time, it was a Charger. Yeah. It had a Hellcat motor in it.
Right.
And I remember you telling me that in order to get that motor, you had to buy an entire Hellcat and take it apart. Whereas now you can buy that as a crate engine. It had, I believe it was a twist machine paddle shift system. And now, it's not standard. It's still a cool trick thing. But a lot of people are building electronically controlled automatic gearboxes with some type of electronic, gearbox controls. And have you gotten a dual clutch to work in one of these things yet?
Not yet.
Is that the next step?
It's out there, and it will happen. I mean, we're not working on anything right now, but it will happen soon.
Because Tremec's got the gearbox for the GT500, right? So you could presumably buy a Tremec dual clutch and install it in a fairly similar fashion to the Mustang, right?
You could.
Is
Absolutely.
the challenge with that bringing the computing power over from an OEM car and making a standalone transmission system, or no?
Not so much anymore. And again, like the engine controllers today, like the Holley Dominator system, it's crazy what you can do with that system. All the options that you can control, RPM drops, I mean, at any level that you want in any instance. So that's very doable today.
Have people tried to build all-wheel drive muscle cars yet?
Yes, in fact, we've designed one, and it's being worked on.
Really?
Right now. Yeah.
Yes.
What is the car?
It will be a '69 Camaro.
Yes,
that'd be pretty cool.
It's the real deal.
Is the '69 Camaro still kind of your meat and potatoes there? Is that still what people are wanting?
We always have had, because that was our first product line, was the first generation Camaros, and there'll always probably be a first gen Camaro in the shop. But more trucks. We've got a Blazer now, a K5 Blazer in the shop. Riviera.
Those are real shit boxes, those K5 Blazers.
Yes, they are.
I drove one of those. That was one of the worst driving vehicles I've ever driven in my life.
It's a tractor.
It was terrible.
Yeah, it is
a lot of room to move upward there.
Yes.
They look great.
No,
I mean, that's a pure attitude truck, but oh boy, are they bottom of the barrel when it comes to driving experience. They're terrible.
It's like a road grader. You're in the ditches most of the time.
I mean, look, and I live in Los Angeles, so everybody wants a fucking Bronco.
Yeah.
And they're trash too. I mean, they're, I drove recently I drove a Broncos $150,000 build, Coyote motor,
Right.
Crazy reservoir shocks and all this stuff. I thought I was going to crash into a row of parked cars. I mean, it was uncontrollable disaster.
Right.
So I there's a lot of room for improvement there.
There is.
So what about I saw the blue iRock that you guys did a couple years ago, and I thought, oh man, iRocks are about to be cool. Maybe I need to get on the iRock train. Are they coming up? Are people asking for the 80s now?
Absolutely. iRock parts and Fox body parts. That's where it's at now.
Yeah. Oh, you have a Fox body kit?
Yeah. No, we've just introduced a rear suspension kit, some body components, mini tubs.
Does it keep the solid axle, or is it an independent suspension?
Solid axle right now, and we've got a bolt-on front suspension and an SLA coming out.
Okay, cool.
Very soon.
If you're not driving on roads that are too bumpy, if the roads are relatively smooth, that setup will work just fine. It's only on the crappiest of tarmac that the independence is, and it's very complex and very heavy.
It is. And the track widths, all of that, it can be done, but there's pluses and minuses to both. So
I did it because it was like I liked the idea of new tech in an old car, but I could have achieved a very similar end result for a lot less money and headache, and it wasn't necessarily worth the effort. But
it is. It's in the 80s and 90s, and the iRock that we built. I've raced mine 2 or 3 years now, and it's brought more and more people to buying those cars, I think, and building more. So it's fun. Yeah,
they're moving out of ironic cool and into regular cool.
Right.
Yeah, so you just told me, like, literally right before we started recording that you guys were bought out by Holley.
Yes.
That's congratulations. That's amazing.
Thank you.
I must have missed the press release because apparently it happened 10 months ago.
There wasn't much of a press release, but, Holley has a strong brands, right? All the brands that they have, and they're very good at getting the job done. And they came to me a few years ago, and I'd said no. I still had a lot I wanted to do in the industry, and even last year when they started calling, but, their executive team over there, they're car guys, and they get it. They get this industry. They're great people. And I started having a once-a-week conversation with them, and I kept telling them no. And then finally I said, well, maybe, as 2020 went along.
Yeah.
And to any business owner, it was tough. Even though
but your business, you must have had a record year.
We did.
You must have had 2 scary months and then a record year after that. You're the exact kind of place that would have been printing money during this whole thing.
We were doing very well. We weren't on the road spending marketing money.
Yeah.
The shop was very busy with builds and the products.
Yeah, but your patrons must have been just sending the wire. It
was a great year. But that was part of the beauty of it too. As we talked, they were going to get into the suspension business, whether it was Detroit Speed or one of the competitors. And again, there was a lot of reasons I hadn't thought about it. So I had an adult conversation with myself and made the pros and cons, and it started to make sense. Holley's a great brand. They treated me very well all the way through it, and I'm still involved on a part-time engineering basis now.
So what is the structure of it? Is Detroit Speed the brand, still the brand, or is it just a subsidiary, and are you guys operating independently over there, or how's it working?
Yeah, no, the great questions, and of course employees had to be explained that right away, but the facility will still be in Mooresville. They understand the connection of a car place like Mooresville,
it's like NASCAR city.
It is. There's a lot of technical content and technical people there. So the facility will stay in Mooresville. The brand will still be Detroit Speed. They recognize the brand and what it means in the industry. USA made parts, designed to be the upper level parts, and that all will absolutely still be the same.
Do you guys have any cars here at the show?
No, not this year. We've got some that are ready to come out, very close, but couldn't make it this year.
Are you over like rushing to build a car to get it here?
I tell you, October and November are so tough usually between prepping a car and coming out with a booth, and then usually I race in Optima into the week and then go to Baja right after that to start pre-running. So it's always been a ball buster, to tell you the truth.
Are you running Baja
this
year?
Yeah, we go down Sunday night to start pre-running.
Oh, wow. What's your pre-running vehicle?
So it's like a Class 10 buggy.
Okay. That's your race vehicle and also your pre-runner?
Yeah, so it's similar to that. It's like a detuned version of a Class 10 vehicle for pre-run. And I do it for BF Goodrich tires, and it's a great team. Gosh, I've done it 8 or 9 times now.
Really?
And
what's your best finish?
We've won class 4 times.
Oh, wow.
So,
I should research that before asking the question.
Luck is a lot on your side down at Baja. You have to beat Baja first, and then you race whoever's left near the end.
What is your, if you can recall, your best time? Do you remember?
Well, it's hard because the race course may be 700 miles one year and it may be 1,400 miles
true.
one
They
year.
change. Yeah,
so
they change it a bunch.
It varies. Your average speed changes. Like our average speed this year is probably in our class 35 miles an hour, which seems 35 mile an hour. Yeah.
No, but average.
You may be picking through a dry creek bed at 2 miles an hour for 30 minutes. And you're going 120 across the dry lake
What your
bed.
top speeds? About 120.
In race trim with spare tires and light bars and parts, it's about 120.
And how close is your pre-running vehicle to your race vehicle?
It's kind of clapped out compared to a race vehicle. It's like getting in a new car when you're on race day. It's like everything's as it should be.
Is it allowed? What are the rules for a pre-runner?
It opened, 2 weeks ago. People could start pre-running, and trophy truck, spec truck, class 1 guys.
But you can't pre-run in your race vehicle, right?
You could.
Oh, you could?
But
Yeah,
it's risky, right?
But you're just it'll be sacked out.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I thought most people didn't do it because there was a rule against it.
No, I don't think there is. I mean, a lot of people pre-run on a UTV now because it's not like you have to go down there at 100%, 10 tenths driving. You're there checking your GPS and putting what we call skull and crossbones on the GPS. This will kill you on race speed. So check up. And, and your co-driver calls that out. Hey, we've got a skull and crossbones coming up in 2 tenths, 1 tenth.
Do
check
you have
up.
a note about what the skull and crossbones is, or you just know skull and crossbones, you slow down, especially, and then you identify it on the fly?
We remember the big, scary skull and crossbones, like a washout that's 5 feet down and 6 feet wide. You remember some of those, but we make notes too, and the race week's pretty serious with logistics and drivers' meetings and going over those gotchas that you remember them.
Seems fun. What kind of engine's in the Class 10?
So we're running it's basically a flat 4 Porsche Subaru motor, fuel injected, Weddell transaxle, and lots of suspension travel. Like 37-inch tires, and
it's a pretty old school style setup, though, right?
It is. I mean, but that's what works down there. You've seen people try a lot of trick stuff, and it is so hard to beat the terrain down there.
Yeah,
that it's
air cooled, right?
And ours are water cooled.
Oh, it's water cooled.
Yeah.
Okay.
But and that's why BF Goodrich does it. I think. I mean, I know they do it. They have such a presence down there, but that is the proving ground for some of the tires that we get to drive on in the all terrains. Is it has to prove it can beat Baja first.
Yeah. Is it like a KO2 or something? Yeah,
we put, it's neat, this team that we've had together, when you see Baja champion on the side of a BF Goodrich tire, it's because it's legitimately won the BF, the Baja 1000.
Yeah, that's cool.
And we've been part of that with a KO2, KM3, so it's pretty neat to be a part of that.
That's really cool. I bet that that's a very rewarding thing to win. It seems really hard.
What's rewarding is just a finish. To be a part of it, it's so surreal. You're tired and your body hurts and the car is starting to get clapped out and you see the sunrise and you think, man, we're racing in the Baja 1000. This is cool.
Is there a point during the race where, because from the outside looking in, it looks like the most exciting driving you can do because it's like, oh, here's 15 hours of sliding in the dirt and going flat out. But I'm sure that gets tiring. Is there a point in the race where that gets tiring? You're like, now I'm just trying to survive, or does it go up and down in terms of excitement?
No, it does go up and down. You're running on adrenaline that's so high, but you're strapped in there for so long. We're typically in the car 6 to 10 hours, but if something goes wrong, I've been in the car 19 hours. So, I mean, it wears on you, especially if you're not feeling well. We're pretty strict race week to have cheese quesadillas and bottled water or bottled beer only.
Yeah.
And, for the gringos to go down and you have to be pretty careful on what you eat and drink.
No sushi. Yeah.
No sushi down there. It's probably good, but you don't want to do that.
Yeah,
but I've started the race where it's like some of us got sick even before the race, and to finish, it's like strongest man competition just to kind of muscle through it.
My friend just ran a rally 2 weeks ago. He finished third, but his co-driver, I don't know why he got sick, but they have onboard they get half mile in the race, and the guy just says, I'm sorry, I can't read the notes, and he just pulls out a bag. And he spent 2 stages throwing up while Dave just drove basically blind and still finished third.
That's terrible.
Yeah, and watching the onboard of the guy just going around corners,
I feel, because it is in the race, you're wired live with your co-driver, right? So you hear them start to breathe heavy. You hear them throw up in their helmet. Ugh. You hear everything, right? So I mean, it's a treat.
Yeah, that's. I'll just tap out now. That sounds awful.
It's a good time. You would like it.
Can I ask? When you started Detroit Speed, because of your background knowledge at the OEMs, did you approach modifying and improving handling on these old cars from with a different way than other companies? Like instead of going, okay, we just need stiffer suspension, did you go, well, we can reinforce the chassis in these weird places that only OEMs usually focus on?
Yeah, no, I believe we did because, in the aftermarket it was always Heim joints and Delrin bushings, and I knew that you could get a rubber bushing, the right rubber bushing, to ride right and handle right, and then you get the best of both worlds. So we spent a lot of time on that, and just like the subframe when we came out with it years ago, and to this date it's still the only hydroform front subframe available in the aftermarket, and that's what GM does, right? I was dumb enough as a company owner to stick my neck out there and try it. It was a risk because it was big tooling dollars, but I knew in the long run that would pay us back in the aftermarket, and it has. I mean, it was just, if GM were to do a first generation Camaro front subframe, that's how they would have done it, right? New geometry, hydroform frame rail, stamped cross members, rack and pinion, and we pulled it off with a small team and not a lot of money in the aftermarket. So I think we did approach it, even the basics, a lot different from the NVH, that most aftermarket companies didn't pay attention to several years ago.
Yeah. What is in terms of the materials science that's happened in the last few years? I mean, obviously the cost of carbon stuff has come down. Mm-hmm. What are some of the more interesting materials that you have access to now that you might not have had access to in the past?
Definitely, not that aluminum is new, but using a lot more aluminum in the bonding agents that you have today. I mean, the adhesives that are available from the companies, it's crazy how strong they can be. Spread that out over the surface area, and it's better than welding some things together.
Isn't
it
funny how far people will use and go in their marketing to avoid saying the word glue?
Yeah, really.
It's bonding. It's bonding.
Bonded. Lotus talks about a bonded chassis, and I'm like, you mean you glued it together, huh? And
yeah, I mean, they all do it. It's aluminum bonded to something. And how is it bonded?
Yeah.
Right.
But you're right. It is. Some of the stuff that they can do, it's more rigid than metal.
It is.
Yeah,
I mean, just what you can do with shocks today. I mean, you can have your phone app. You can change the settings on the shocks today that we can't.
I got to play with one of those. Yeah. I left the phone alone. I don't like when it goes through the phone. I like to give me a sport button. You know what I mean? I just like something about. I mean, I know that the fine tuners, the people who if you let me play with this in my phone, I will fuck the tuning right up. Give me sport and comfort on a hard button. Right. Even though it was with the Gunther Works, the Gunther Works, 993 Porsche, which is like $600,000, and now has an adaptive shock that's adjustable from the phone, and they were like, here's the app and here's how you do it. I'm like, just one button for comfort and one button for sport, please.
I'm with you. I'm a basic level. I'm like the Chevrolet Biscayne guy. I like to drive a car. I don't like all the switches and things you can do. I want it bare bones, really.
Well, I just don't want to need my phone for it. Like even when we're filming, we use GoPros, right? We're filming. People, you just turn them on with your phone. No. I don't. I hit the button on top.
I know it's going.
I know it's on.
Right.
100%. You know what I mean? I just don't trust. Yeah. I don't trust the phone.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
But that's all that's out there, and a lot of the customers we build for, they want those gadgets.
Yeah.
So we have to get into that and understand it, just like the traction control or ABS. I mean, it's real, and customers want that. Even though, like for an example, the
But do you limit what the customer can do for their own good?
Well, yeah, as a builder, you have to educate them, right?
Yeah.
This isn't like a paddle shift that you'll experience in your Porsche, right? It doesn't work like that. It's not as fast.
Yeah.
But yeah, sometimes we can educate them, sometimes we can't.
Yeah. What is the? Do you think that as mass OEMs get more legislated out of certain high performance vehicles or are forced to go, do you see your business growing because people are going to start wanting more and more things that they can't get anymore? Or do you see yourself following and doing EV hot rods and stuff like that?
It's a hot topic this week, right?
I've seen more chassis with EV powertrains on them here than I really thought I would.
I have too, and there's a mixed bag of results, and I get that, but you've got to remember, and in this industry, in this show, it's about bringing what's new, and electric motors are what's new, and you're going to see it in cars, hot rods. I mean, as people modify cars, you're going to see it, but that is coming, and I think there'll be a market for it. from me, I appreciate that it's the next step forward. But at the same time, I think it will help our business so that as cars get to be less and less able to be modified, like the new Corvette, right?
Yeah.
I mean, how much more can you do it? There's crazy body kits and things out there, but to
Some
me,
of them are heinous.
Some of them are really bad.
Yeah.
But it gives us the opportunity to build something for a customer that's different that your neighbor can't have in their driveway. To build an all-wheel drive Camaro, and you don't have that, buddy.
Yeah.
Check that out. So it's. I think there's still a lot of room for the aftermarket and the builders to still do their thing.
What are, not that I want you to throw any specific company or car under the bus, but what are some of the most common mistakes you see people making when they're trying to make old cars go fast?
Probably overlooking the small things. I mean, you can put an electric motor in some of these cars, but they forget about everything else.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it's typically they'll hit on, in a lot of shops, you'll see it that they'll focus on the big items to put the latest widget or gadget in the car, but the rest of the car, the body panels or the fitment or the way you sit in a car, to me that's very important. And people will raise the floor pan in these cars so they can set them on the rockers, but who wants to drive it like that? Then
I know,
all up in the headboard.
I've seen some. I've been walking around and I've seen a couple cars where I peeked in the seating position. It's like, oh, this is obviously not meant to be driven for very long.
Right.
Yeah. That stuff really matters.
It does. I've had some people that, the car looks great sitting over there, or it's on a magazine spread, but you'd never want to drive it because it's so uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So
cars, you guys compete in Ultimate Street Car Invitational and other autocross events in your class, right? I mean that's
right.
I came to know of you through Matt, of course, but you drove a bunch of their cars that were like high performance go stop turn machines. So have you always focused on performance first, and then the rest of kind of aesthetics and design came afterwards?
Growing up racing, I've always been a functional guy first. And I don't like anything fake on a car. If it's not doing its job, then I don't want it on there. So it's been the function and that before the beauty of it. But at the same time, you can have a very, very functional car that's fun to drive and highly detailed. And I think that's kind of been our niche in the market, is to build a very functional, fun driving car that can be very detailed too.
Yeah, your cars, I mean, they, other than being very loud, and therefore
some are pretty loud.
And that the volume of them can make you kind of tired. I find that your cars are easy to drive for a long time. They're just not they're not, even for the level of performance they offer, they don't feel like as much like work to drive as some of the other builds that you got to muscle around. Like your cars, they steer more normally, and they just feel a little more like actual modern cars.
Yeah, and I think I appreciate that because that means a lot. We want it to be like that, because we spend so much time on the development side to really work through the spring rates and the shock valving and the bar rates to make it a package that has the handling capacity that hopefully a customer rarely reaches. Hopefully if they do, it's there, but it rides well and everybody can appreciate that day to day.
Is it important to still do these crazy built motors when you get an LT4, just drop it in and call it a day? Is it just
the crazy motors, that people want the horsepower numbers, and most of the customers that want 1,000 horsepower car have never had anything close to that. And when they drive it, it is like, oh my God, I don't need to own this car anymore.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, I fear for some of them driving it. Some of these cars we've built, I mean, they are faster than you can think sometimes.
Yeah.
And some of these people, they don't have the experience to drive it. So.
Well, that's what we see in California when people go from a Prius to a Tesla.
Yeah.
And now they've got something that's 500 to 1,000 horsepower, and it's silent.
Right.
And you don't have any kind of sensory indication of the fact that you're entering a corner 40 or 50 miles an hour too hot.
Yeah.
And they really send it.
They need to plug in some of the charger car noises on some of these electric vehicles. So
we drive a lot of cars too, and we're susceptible to that kind of stuff. When we drive a very fast EV, we can get ahead of our own feet sometimes, because when you learn to drive in a gasoline powered car, you associate a gear, an RPM, and a gear, and and a sound, and a blah,
you're using
blah, blah.
all your sensories. You just lost one of your sensories in an electric
it's
car.
really, really funky.
Yeah.
What's new on the racing horizon? Anything interesting that you guys are doing in the racing world right now?
Yeah, for me, it's Baja next, and I am prepping the 3rd gen, putting in a sequential transmission to go back and do some road courses.
That blue
next
car?
year, yeah.
That thing rules.
Yeah,
is that
so
that
it's
same
fun.
car that got like crashed real bad and rebuilt, or is it a different
car.
one? Okay.
That car is sitting out behind the shop in the woods. It was so bad. In fact, I never drove that car, but it was crashed by one of our engineers. He wasn't doing anything wrong, but he crashed it. And this is a separate car, second car that we put together.
Are those cars? I've never driven a nicely built IROC. Are they nice to drive when they're done?
They can be. This one's still loud, and it has a pretty crazy motor in it, but it is, when you're out driving it, I love the seating position in them.
Sit low.
Yeah, you sit low, you sit back, and I love the cars. I love to drive them.
Yeah. What kind of customers are getting IROCs built right now? Goombas?
Good question. We filmed one for Big Muscle years ago.
Yeah.
The guy couldn't have been nicer. It was like a red one, automatic, but I don't know what parts were on it, but I do remember it turned really well. Musto remarked on how well it braked, and the thing went really good. It only had like 400 horsepower, but the chassis and everything, according to Musto, felt really good. Took to the mods really nicely.
Is it independent rear suspension in that, or it's a solid axle? It's a solid axle?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a fun platform.
I wonder when the people are going to start asking for the next round, for the F bodies. Has that happened yet?
Yeah, it's soon. Like I said, those cars are so popular, and it's either a Fox body or a 3rd gen Camaro. That's what people want.
Is anyone asking for Vipers?
No, not yet. Not that I've heard.
They handle good enough, I guess.
I think so.
Some of them, yeah. Some of the newer ones, for sure.
Well, the newer ones, certainly, yeah. All of a sudden, I find the 92s and 93s so appealing. I don't know why.
Yeah.
I thought they were so stupid for so long, but I guess it's just that's their age now.
When was that new? Was it 91? Was that the first?
92 was the first year.
92 was the first year?
Yeah,
okay.
I think they made like 300 of them in 92, and then it was full production in 93.
Yeah, I scared myself to death and almost lost my career before I started at GM with that Viper we had as a benchmark car.
Uh-huh.
Why they would let a co-op student take a Dodge Viper out on the hill route, but somehow I talked somebody into it, and it was almost tragic, but I pulled through it.
Was there anything else you remember from those benchmark drives of it, something that really stood out to you from the other cars, and you went, we got to make the Corvette do this?
The Acura NSX, I was never around cars like that growing up, so for me to get in a car like that, and I'm not saying that's what the Corvette needed to be, but it did some things to me that I was like, I'd never experienced in a car before.
That car is a lovely car.
It's so easy to drive, so fun to drive.
And that's reflected in their collector values,
Right.
Plus, it's got that really low dashboard.
Right.
You're like on the front axle, and they're just light shifter, light pedals, very, very nice
driver
cars.
car. Yeah, it's fun to drive.
They're expensive though now.
Yeah.
I mean, you want a really good NSX, you're looking at $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 sometimes for, one that's even got a bunch of miles on it,
Yeah.
We got a few questions from the fans for you, Kyle, if Zach wouldn't mind.
Yeah.
Normally I have a
what's up?
screen to read off in our home studio, but we don't here. So Zach gets to present the questions.
We already talked about the EV thing for Prashant, I think. Okay, Hunter Sands asks, as modern cars become increasingly fast and dull, do you see the market of building rowdy cars that actually stop and turn growing as a result?
Yeah, I still see the market growing, again, just to be so they're not so vanilla, right? Muscle cars are more of like the knuckle dragger, and they can be analog. They don't have to be digital and vanilla. And some people, I think, just like a big block, the new Chevrolet big, even though
this 1,000 horsepower engines, 10 liters, Jesus.
I think there's
How many orders do you have for that?
Not that I know of yet,
Yeah.
but it'll be coming. But I think there is a good market for that, to go back to those, not hot rod Model A's and 32s. There's a good following for that, but to make those muscle cars maybe not so refined into a pro touring car, to make it more like a muscle car, I still think that can happen.
Do you guys, when someone asks you for like 1,000+ horsepower car, do you guys partner with an engine company? Because that's not really what you focus on in-house.
No, we don't do engines in-house, so it varies. Like we have a Charger in the house right now that has a Elephant in it. Mm-hmm. Some of the LS engines, we've used Mass Motorsports down in Texas for Skog and Dickey and some of the race shops like that. But, the best bang for the buck is to plug in a GM crate motor and go to town.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah.
There we go. Well, Joe Leonard says that you might have just answered this. Is there any potential for you to begin going back and reproducing older engines for aging classics? for car, in replace of car makers that don't make those engines anymore. But you guys don't make engines.
We're not an engine company. Chassis and suspension, ball joints are us, not camshafts. But yeah, somebody will. That'll come up.
How many? In the vein of that, you don't necessarily have subframes and stuff for every old car. How many calls do you need to get to justify? Okay, maybe we need to really look into making this part, or is it you need one patron to cover the tooling for everybody that comes after it? Is that pretty much it?
That's a good question. It takes a lot.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of interest, and there's a lot of intel that we've done being on the road, whether it's at shows or racing, and you start to see what people are wanting to build, or they keep asking for it, and that we do surveys too to ask what people are looking for from us as a brand. But I tell you, there's a lot of intelligence that comes from just being on the road and racing and being at the shows and talking to people.
Isn't that tough though? I mean, to figure out when interest will convert to sales, because so many people will say they're interested,
right?
But now it's like, okay, does that mean I justify millions of dollars in the tooling to build this thing?
Well, yeah, it happens. I mean, when we got into the third gen, you don't know whether we've got one guy or one club that just has 50 people in it with IROCs that want parts, right?
Yeah.
And we have 50 calls in a day. But you have to really, and it's a risk in the aftermarket to put any tooling dollars and fixtures into what's really low volume.
Has it ever not paid off? Have you ever done tooling for something that just turned out to not be that popular?
The Chevy 2, our Chevy 2 product line.
The Chevy 2?
Yeah.
Like the Nova 2?
Yeah, it's an awesome product line for that car, but we were late to the game.
Uh-huh.
A lot of people got on that earlier than us and had some brand equity in it, but our Chevy 2 front end is just like the hydroform subframe. It works and transforms those cars.
I love that car.
I feel like that product line's never really caught on, even though we're selling. The more we sell, the more it sells itself. But that one's probably one looking back that was a little bit of a disappointment, but it's still cruising along and getting better.
A long play.
It's a long play.
Yeah. But but if you go to, you don't see as many of those certainly as you would Camaros or even Mustangs or anything.
I love the Chevy 2s too. The 66, 67s are very popular. I like the early ones even. Mine's a 63, but those are cool cars. They can ride very well and handle well too.
Yeah, they're small too.
Right.
They're very small.
Right.
They look like a half size of like a Chevelle or something. If you see them out in the wild by themselves, because they just look like a 3/4 car or something. But they're
just as
cool.
much smaller greenhouse. Yeah.
Last one, because we answered Dan Mosquito's question. Rob Libert says, my 16-year-old son is set on fixing up his mom's 68 Mustang, which is an antique that she drove in high school. Other than a disc brake conversion, what would you start on to modernize the car? He knows you offer full suspension. Would that be reasonable? And he says, yes, before anybody says it. I recognize it's risky, but we live out in the middle of nowhere, and it won't be a daily driver.
Yeah, no, first of all, it's good to hear young people getting into the industry and liking cars, right, instead of phones and games and things like that. So good for you. But, yeah, the first thing is probably brakes and steering on the Mustang, 68 Mustang. Go to the aftermarket companies and get a decent brake package that can bolt on the stock suspension even to make it easy. Steering in those cars are probably the next biggest weak link. You can fix that, and probably some bolt-on front suspension would go a long way to keep him one that it's fun to drive, but also safe to drive for him too.
To fix the steering, are you talking about changing the system and switching to like IFS completely and rack and pinion, or are you just saying like update the bushings and stuff?
Yeah, more so to put a power. Those cars had like a drag link with a slave assist on it, and they never did really work that well. And that steering box has a solid shaft going to the steering wheel, right? So it's not a collapsible column. So the best way to do it is to put on like an aftermarket power steering box and put in a collapsible column from the aftermarket. It's a good way to do it. At least take the solid shaft out that's sitting behind the steering wheel out of it for a young person
dangerous.
Like that. Yeah. And there was in the 60s, that was, a lot went on with that. But yeah, that's probably the first thing I would do, and then get into aftermarket control arms, at least for the front. There's a lot of options for the front suspension, but brakes and steering would be the first two.
Great.
I want to end with, whenever we have folks like yourself, experts in the field, people who own their businesses, founded them, we usually get a question from the fans about this, but I'll just throw it out there. Because we talk about people who are younger, that guys like yourself can't always find, craftsmen who really want to work and really want to perfect their skills and really make a career out of working on these cars and engineering parts. If you're going to hire somebody, what are you looking for in a new hire in general, even if it's very entry level? What kind of skills could someone develop on their own before they come to someone like yourself asking for a job? And how would you advise a young person who has a basic mechanical aptitude but wants to, pursue their passion as a career in a long-term way? What do you say to people like that?
Yeah, we always still look for personalities to make sure that someone's open to learn. They're passionate about this industry. Means a lot. If they're passionate and willing to learn, we can teach somebody to weld. We can teach anybody anything, really. But I think that's the two key ingredients. And it's great to be able to have a trade, even if you go to night school and take a welding class, TIG welding class. We cannot hire enough CNC machinists and welders right now.
We keep hearing CNC operators. We keep hearing that one. That's a regular one that comes up. Welding?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, again, we've taken people, some of the best employees that have kind of grown with the company as the company's needed new people to grow with it, or just people that came out of high school with a passion and willingness to learn and dedicated to the company, and they're just passionate about this industry.
That's a good answer. I like that. Well, congratulations on the Holley deal.
Thank
you.
It's
amazing for you.
Thank you.
Amazing for your employees, I hope.
It's been better for them so far, yeah.
Yeah, it's a measure of stability, certainly,
right.
And access to the entire Holley parts catalog as well, I imagine.
Employee discounts came up right away on questions.
Employee discounts, yeah, there you go.
That may have been the second question that was asked when I announced
it. There you go. Any new product announcements in the pipeline that you want to mention since we are here at SEMA?
Yeah, the SLA front suspension is still in the works, so that'll be big for the Fox bodies.
Mm-hmm.
We just introduced our C10 front suspension product line, which is really neat. Bolt-on cradle, rack and pinion system, transforms the trucks into, you forget you're driving a truck. So excited about that.
That's cool. Well, regards to the whole Detroit Speed family, we certainly love your products, and the next time one of those cars makes it through Los Angeles, make sure you call us. We can have a little go.
All right.
And enjoy the rest of your SEMA. I appreciate you sitting down with us for this quick one.
You bet.
Good to see you, man.
You too. Thank you.
That's our show for today. Kyle Tucker of Detroit Speed and Engineering is always a pleasure, and we will be back tomorrow with Mr. Robert Dahm. See you.
Yeah.